one attacker versus one blocker. I think one of the things with Andrew that he's going to focus on is we call it ball setter, ball hitter, ball. That has the balls coming in, the first thing he has to worry about is an overpass. So if I overpass the ball, I never overpass the ball, Andrew. If I'm going to overpass the ball, he can jump up and take a free point. So as he's prepared as a blocker, the first thing he looks at is an overpass. Once the ball's on its way to the setter and it's halfway in the air, he can anticipate it's going to the setter. Block a couple different options. We'd like him to what we call stay ahead of the ball. As the ball's on its way to the setter, we'd like him to get his eyes on the setter. Anticipate where the setter's going to set. He can stay ahead of the ball's on its way to the setter, he gets his eyes on the setter. Once he identifies where the set is going, he takes a look at the ball in the air, and before the ball gets to the hitter, his eyes get on the hitter because that's what's going to redirect the ball. The last thing, it's ball setter, ball hitter. We'd like to get back on the ball and see our hands block the ball. That's going to eliminate or attempt to eliminate a lot of guys tucking their heads and not being able to see what their hands do. A lot of times where their hands are, if your head is up, your hands are naturally forward. Once you start to tuck your head, your hands come back. And then your hands aren't across the net and it's not a great block. So what we're going to do is we're going to just go one-on-one. We have one blocker versus one attacker. I'll toss from over here so you can see our blocker. I'm just going to set a high ball. His eyes are on the ball. He gets to the hitter. Ready? Ready? Hands are up in a ready position. Now, one of the things that we'd like to do is we'd like to block the ball more with our hands than our face. But I think where he was with his hand position, his hands were wide. It's okay to be wider than it is narrow. You want to be a bigger blocker and take more space away. As he's doing that, I mean, obviously, what happened was his hands were high and his head was here and the ball came across. If your hands are that high, just reach across and grab the ball. Go one more. All right. Now we're going to add another blocker. You guys can block. And Sharon, why don't you jump in behind Gray and just alternate? You doing okay blocking? We're going to add two players. It's the same setup. Ready? They move together. No, that's fine. Ready? Move and reach. Keep your head up. Hands on this side of the net. I think as you take a look at their footwork, their feet relatively move together. That it's synchronized movement. That their feet are moving together. And then as you watch the finish, their hands are getting across the net. That if we were to look at it from the side, as the net is here, their hands need to push across the net. We're not worried about how high they jump. All three blockers jump and touch at a pretty high altitude. We're not really worried about that as much as we are getting across the net. One more. Hands on this side. One more. Okay, and freeze. Freeze, don't move. Now, on that one, I think one of the things as an outside blocker, we talked about ball setter, ball hitter, that ball got set inside. As Nick finished as an outside hitter, he finished here, and now he's spiking the ball there. One of the common mistakes with the crossover move is where Andrew finished, he wants to make a big move. Go back in. He wants to make a big dynamic move because he wants to stuff the ball. And all of a sudden he sees it, and he explodes out of his base ready position and ends up even with the attacker that's here. Well, our attacker's going at a pretty hard angle, fast close this way. He's probably going to hit the ball in the direction that he finishes in. and now I'm even, and now I've taken my advantage on a bad set and given it back to the attacker that he's got an advantage that he's by me. So one of the things that's difficult is that's where you have a small shuffle move and a shuffle and a shoot versus a crossover where guys want to make big crossover moves and get across the net, and then instead of being here and in a square position, we end up in a position where we're blocking like this and trying to dive in on outside attackers. One of the things that we can do to clarify it is the outside blocker can call inside, stop short, long, wide, fast. Right now we only have one player, but let's try and give some audible direction to the middle blocker too, where we're going to set up. All right, good ready position, hands up a little higher.
Inside, inside. Inside.
As a pin blocker, what we'd like to do is, as the ball gets tossed, we'd like him to start his move when he sees the ball get released. He has to naturally judge by the tempo of the set, by the speed of the approach of the attacker, where the pace is and where he's going to set up, whether it's inside or outside. But if he waits to see in a ready position how fast it goes before he can say how fast he's going to be late and not get there. We would like him to be... Okay, hold up a second. We'd like him to rather be late than wrong. It's better to be late than wrong. The pin blocker that thinks it's going to be a go and steps out and all of a sudden now it's a bick, now you're wrong, and now everything is screwed up with your block and your defense. I think the second step is where you can accelerate. I see it's going over my head, I take one step, and then I can accelerate and jump into it. I think one of the common mistakes that we see at times is when players, we want them to pause in a ready position. So I pause here and wait, and then I go here and finish fast and go and block. Instead of a pause at the end where they go out here and they wait, and then it becomes a one-step jump. And that eliminates the need for a crossover. We're crossing over so we can get an approach and jump and block.